Hey guys, this is Jason, JC316. Today I'm going to be showing y'all how to change the tie rod ends on the F-bodies from GM. This job pretty much is the exact same on any car you're going to work on, so this is also a generic video as well, but this particular one is the F-body. So, I'll show you how to test for it. My tie rod ends are bad. I'm getting some pretty good shake. Hard to tell on video, but this tire's got some pretty good left to right shake when it shouldn't have it. I'm feeling a lot of feedback into the steering wheel because of it. So we'll go ahead and swap these out. First thing you're going to want to do is jack the car up. Now on the F-bodies, this has kind of its own special procedure. Too many people make the mistake of putting the jack right here, and this will cause your fender to bend out really bad. So there's a little hunk of plastic behind it, and that is what you use to jack it up with. You don't have to worry about that. So next thing we got to do is get the tire itself off. This is pretty much simple. I'm using air tools. You can do it with just a normal tire tool or on the ground. I've got a wheel lock. Well, mine it's 19 millimeter bolts. A lot of times it's 21 or 13/16 or I think 3/4. But anyway, I'm going to pop these off and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so I got the tire off and I went ahead and spun the wheel all the way to the right because I'm working on the right side. Now, I apologize if there's a lot of wind noise, but I can't work without a fan in Texas. So, take a look here. You can see my boot is all tore up. There's no grease left in there. It's pretty much messed up. So, we're going to have to pop this castle nut off, and nearly all castle nuts and all tie rod ends are going to have the cotter pin on top. So what you got to do is take your needle nose pliers, or any pliers really, and try to get it as straight as possible and bend it down out of the way. Now you can reuse these if you don't mess them up. I have a whole case of them, so I'll just put news on mine. But once you kind of got it as straight as possible, you'll grab it with the pointy end and work at it. If it won't come, you probably don't have it straight enough. You can get the edge of the plier into it. You can really work at it to try to pull it through. Sometimes these can be difficult, and this one's being difficult. Alright, well, you get the basic idea. Just keep working at it. This will be a lot easier with two hands. Be right back. Alright, so now the cotter pin's out, and I'll show you how messed up I had to get it out of there. So next up, we got to take this castle nut off. It's an 18 millimeter, and I'm just going to use an impact on it. Regular socket or wrench will work just fine. My impact aided. Alright, now when we get to this point, we're going to need a specialty tool. Actually, you know what? I may be getting ahead of myself a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this nut off before I take it off from here. This is just a time-saving thing, so I don't wind up turning it up in the piece here. And this is the outer tie rod end that we're changing. I'm not worrying about the inners. So I gotta find the right wrench for this nut, and I'll be right back. Alright, the nut is a 7/8, and I'm just gonna give it a little whack right here to loosen it off. just back it up a little bit because we're going to wind up unscrewing this. So at this point you're going to need this. It's a ball joint or tie rod end separator. You can get these at your local auto parts stores. You might even be able to rent them, I'm not sure. But how it works is you take the forked end and you stick it up in there, and you're going to hit this in with a hammer. You hit it 3 or 4 times and it'll wedge its way up in there and knock your tie rod end loose. It takes both hands to do it. I don't have a cameraman right now, so I'll be right back as soon as I knock it out. Alrighty, 4 hits and it pops loose. We're almost done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back this nut out a little bit. I mean, really, if you leave the nut forward, you can do this, but just in case it ever got moved, I'm going to back this out. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of spray paint on the thread so I know how far to go with the new one. This is part of your front end alignment. So yeah, now you can see that the threads are spray painted black, so I'll know exactly how far to go with my new tie rod ends. I gotta grab one more tool. Be right back. Alright, so the other tool I had to get is a 13mm wrench, and there's on all tie rods there'll be some groove sections that you can grab hold of with a wrench. And you'll hold this down and then twist this end. It should come by hand, but sometimes they don't. You'll have to work them with a pair of channel locks. So yeah, let's see if that gets you anywhere. Yeah, it's gonna take channel locks. Alright, so these guys are channel locks. They're just slip joint, and you grab and twist or twist. And the main thing here is you want to just loosen off on the end. You don't want to loosen off on the rod itself. You want to try to keep it and your alignment right. Alright, so you're basically left with a threaded rod. So you want to take your new guys and one. Okay, so the new tie rod end comes with its own hardware, new cotter pin, new castle nut, and in this case, an improvement over the factory design, a grease fitting. Now, if you look on the back side of it, there's a hole, and you'll want to thread in your grease fitting. This may vary by brand. Some brands have them, some brands don't. If yours comes with this, you'll thread it in to the back here. It can be a little tough to get started. And then you'll use, there it goes, in my case a 5/16 or an 8mm. tighten it down with. Just tighten it until it bottoms out. Okay, so that'll give me a grease fitting. Now when I reinstall this, I'll have to grease this, and you do this with a specialty gun. Again, buy it, maybe, I don't think you'll be able to rent it, but you can definitely buy it pretty cheap. It's a good thing to have for the everyday mechanic. It's just because on older style cars, everything used to have grease fittings. I mean everything. The ball joints, the tie rod ends, the rear end, basically anything that moved in the suspension would have one. The newer stuff they've cheaped out on, and a lot of it doesn't have it, but replacement parts will. So you'll want to keep this stuff greased, and it'll keep the durability up. So, at this point, the only thing left to do is put this guy back on, which you can clean up your threads, but they'll just get rusty again. It may make it a little easier to go back on. And you can see the mark we made earlier. That tells me exactly how far to go on the threads, so as not to mess up my alignment. Yeah, see, I bottomed out. So I'm going to get this tightened up all the way to the threads, and then we'll wind up tightening this nut back down and reassembling. So yeah, that should be all. Thanks for watching. Hope it helps. One thing I just thought about is some of y'all might not realize how to put this back on. So you'll turn the knuckle and then until it lines up, and you slide this guy in, and then you'll put the castle nut on top and tighten it down, and that will suck it up tight. You won't have to hammer it on or anything. Just use the castle nut to pull it up tight. So, and then once you're done, you'll slide your new cotter pin in, you'll line up your castle nut and slide your new cotter pin in. Should be as simple as that. Thanks for watching. And once again, I got ahead of myself on ending the video. It didn't occur to me that some people might not know how to might not know how to use a grease gun. This is the grease gun. And this is a big old example. They make much smaller ones that look like, you know, there's little hand size that you squeeze. But they all work in the same general way. You take this end and you snap it onto the fitting. And you give it a few pumps, and you'll see the boot expanding as the grease is going in. And you'll want to pump it and get some grease in there until you kind of start seeing it squish out. Maybe a little bit before then, so you don't blow out the seal. And just get it nice and full. And then you just pull it off. Wipe the end off so dirt doesn't stick to it real bad. And now that's full of grease in there, and it'll protect and lubricate the joint. That should be all. Thanks for watching.